Welcome back to Career Catastrophe. I'm here again with Steph, and today we'll be interviewing Natalie Cutts-Watson.
Now, Natalie comes to us from the wider Skipton group. Have you heard of Skipton International before?
I have to say, there are so many companies within Skipton. I'm not sure the total number, but Skipton International was a new one for me.
So they're based out in Guernsey and Jersey in the Channel Islands, and it's absolutely beautiful. Have you ever been before?
No, I haven't.
Have you not? Oh,
Have you been? Have you been?
I've been a couple of times, and actually we're going for the board strategy day this year as well.
Can I have an invite?
Maybe. But a really beautiful little island, and we're really interested to learn more about her career and what she's been up to. So without further ado, welcome Natalie. How are you today?
I'm really well, thank you. I've had a lovely morning.
Oh, good. Now, you join us all the way from Jersey and Guernsey, don't you? Which office are you based in?
So I'm in Guernsey.
The Guernsey office.
I hope you're staying somewhere lovely in London.
I'm just down the road at the Hilton, Victoria.
Can I just say that sounds a lot nicer than where Steph says?
I knew you were going to say that.
Steph is afraid of staying in any sort of period property.
See, I'm really worried now that everybody who listens to this podcast is going to think I'm scared of ghosts.
You are.
I have a period Victorian home, and I'm pretty sure there's a ghost.
Oh, please, can you tell us more? I love a ghost story.
We used to call it the creepy Victoria girls' room on the very third floor. And it's this tiny little room with a fireplace in it. And it just has a very cold feeling to it when you walk in.
Nope.
My daughter now sleeps in there. And now, but now that it's been decorated, that feeling seems to have disappeared for the time being. There's a lot of creaking.
Anyway, we go off topic.
We absolutely did.
We're here to learn a little bit more about you. So can you tell us about your role at Skipton International?
Yes, so I work in the customer operations department as part of the customer services team. We offer savings products and mortgages. The mortgages are for Guernsey and Jersey properties, and then we offer UK buy-to-let properties for expats and residents living abroad.
And tell us a bit more about you. So did you grow up on the island?
Yes, born and bred. Guern.
Lovely. Mm-hmm. And I hear that you used to be a ballerina.
So I've always danced from the age of 3, and then at 18 I decided, that's what I want to do. So off I came away to the mainland, and I went to a musical theatre college. Trained professionally for 3 years, then entered the world of auditioning. That was a long time ago now.
And it must have taken some discipline to become a ballerina.
That's one of the biggest things I learned from that training. Although it's not what I do now, the discipline was so strict. It started, 8:30 in the morning, and you'd be dancing, singing, acting through till 5:30, 7 o'clock. And that was 5 days a week, plus sometimes weekend rehearsals. And then the timekeeping was a really big thing with the school. You only had 10 minutes between classes. So you're out and quickly changing into, if you had to be into a ballet outfit, it was quick, change tights, hair up in the net, and boom, in you go. No time for anything else.
And so what made you move away from that path?
So I was living in London. I took the qualifications to be able to teach dance as well. So I was doing that alongside the auditioning, etc. And then my then boyfriend, now husband, got a job in Malta. So I'd been doing that for 3 years, and I thought, right, well, that's it. Off we go. So I moved with him to Malta.
It's a big thing to walk away sort of from your dream almost.
Yeah, it was. But I'd already made certain decisions about what kind of work I was prepared to do or not, because at that stage we'd already been together for quite a few years. And I didn't want to go abroad dancing. That was an option, but I chose not to do that. So it just felt the right decision to move abroad with him. But yes, I moved to Malta not knowing what I was going to do.
And how long did you stay there?
2.25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a big learning experience as well. Very different culture and way of living, but it was good.
And so you've got 2 young children
I do.
who you've left at home to come see us. We're very grateful. It must feel like a lovely breakaway.
Yes.
And obviously you're back at work. Am I right in saying, how old are your children?
So my son is going to be 3 in September, and my daughter will be 18 months in September.
Wow.
That's a close gap.
Yeah.
And did you always plan to have 2 kids so close?
No. As it happens, it took a while for my son to come along, and then got caught second time round.
Surprise
a little bit,
baby.
Exactly, a little bit quicker than anticipated. We always were hoping to be able to have 2 children, but yeah, she just came along a little earlier. When I first became pregnant, I thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, and that's what I had in my head. Okay, great, I'm going to go down this route. And then, unfortunately, that pregnancy didn't progress. And so I had a little bit of time off, and then I went back to work. And then I became pregnant again, and then the same thing happened again. And after the second time, I had made a decision that I really enjoyed my job and I wanted to go back to work. And then it never became a consideration that I was going to stay at home.
Natalie, I was going to say, I'm really sorry to hear that you had 2 miscarriages. And I think that, I think 1 in 4 women have, or 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, and it's incredibly difficult. How did you sort of survive that or go through that, whilst working? I don't know if that was when you were at Skipton or somewhere else. Were you able to tell your employer at the time, or did you choose not to?
Yeah, so it was when I was at Skipton, and the first time was in 2020 when we were in lockdown situations. And that one was really, really tricky because it completely just knocked me for 6, because I think the first time you get pregnant, you just think...
I think you have hope.
Everything's all right, everything's going to happen. And then it wasn't until the 12-week scan, and they just said to me, this is not a viable pregnancy. And it just completely, knocked me for 6. And that's
a late miscarriage, isn't it?
Yes,
so and also, when you miscarry, you don't suddenly spring back the next day. Your body is full of hormones for some period.
It was it was a really tough experience, and also it lasted for weeks. It wasn't just okay, it's done, now you can move on. It lasted months. It was a really tricky time. And so I had a couple of weeks off, but then I went back to work, and my manager at the time, I did tell her, and my close colleagues knew. But yeah, I left it at that. So when I got pregnant again a few months after that, relatively quickly. And then that was a completely different pregnancy as well, because then I was just completely anxious up until that 12-week scan. And there were restrictions at the hospital. So I had to go in for that 12-week scan by myself, which was horrible. And they told me it's not a viable pregnancy. And that was it was horrendous, because my husband was in the car park just pacing, waiting to hear from me. So then I had to go out and tell him. It was, yeah.
Oh, absolutely awful. I mean, it's so upsetting to hear. And I know that at that time with COVID, the amount of women that had to go in, have babies, labour alone, all of these, and that should just never have happened.
No.
Incredibly difficult. And at that late stage, that is immensely difficult for anyone who's ever been through that. That is just one of the hardest things, because it is the hope of what and the loss, and very, very difficult. But I'm so pleased to hear that you've got 2 lovely little ones.
Yes.
And I'm sure it makes you cherish them every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what level of flexibility do you have then? Do you have quite a flexible role with being able to work when works best for you?
So yes, I do. And that has come around since COVID. The option of part-time and flexible hours has been really helpful in allowing me to go back part-time.
I think we had this conversation previously, Polly, that actually I think some of the most I think some of the most hardworking people I know are part-time working parents.
Absolutely. I think that there's a real misconception that part-time working means less interested, less motivated, less committed. And actually, for nearly everyone I know that has some sort of flexibility really values that and gives 100% of themselves in the time that they're in the business, and in some cases achieve far more than those that work full-time. So I think that's more businesses do need to embrace that. So our podcast is about career catastrophes, and we sort of talk about career defining moments. Is there a moment in time that you can pinpoint where you had something happen in your career that perhaps redirected your path?
So when it was just before we moved to Malta, and I was doing the agency work in store, and I was always looking to do other things, and I had an audition to belong to this agency, and he said, we're not going to take you on. We'd like you to lose a stone first, and then we might consider taking you on. But in the meantime, would you like to try and recruit people to join the agency? You need to walk up and down Oxford Street and try and get people to hand over £35 to join your agency, and we're going to get them work. And I thought, well, okay, this might be a stepping stone to getting on his books. And I did it for 1 week. Didn't get anyone to join the agency because I was rubbish at it. I don't think I truly believed in the product. Didn't make any money from it, but ended up in hospital because of a blister I got from walking up and down Oxford Street and on a drip, because they were concerned that it was infected. And I thought, right, okay.
As a ex-ballerina, I would have thought it would have taken more to knock you down.
It wasn't great. So I thought, right. And then actually the option to move to Malta came up, and I thought, that's it. Enough's enough.
Is that the type of feedback that you got that was common from the industry of you need to lose weight? How does that impact you mentally from a mental health perspective?
So, yeah, I think it is still quite common. There's always something. Another agency said, we're not looking for blondes right now. It's just so variable. Oh, you're too tall, you're too short, you need to lose weight.
It's a very critical industry, isn't it?
It is.
And how do you build the resilience to come back from those?
Well, I think that's just the nature of the business. You're just constantly auditioning. You just
so you have to have it.
You just have to keep going. And, the training was so tough, and teachers used to handle things in lots of different ways. So you just got to learn to accept feedback in various forms.
So one of the questions that we've asked all of our guests along the way is about sort of interview experiences, and it might be that you've interviewed someone or you've been to an interview, and can you think of a time where an interview's gone particularly well, or a terrible experience where you may have interviewed someone that sort of stayed with you?
Yeah, so a lot of my interviews have been quite straightforward, questions and answers about strengths and weaknesses. But when I moved to Malta and I was thinking, what am I going to do? I spent one afternoon on a hop-on, hop-off tourist bus.
Okay.
And I had Googled dance schools on the island, and it just so happens that I was coming up to one. So I hopped off the tourist bus and I just walked into the dance school and found the principal and said, any chance you need a guest dance teacher? I've just moved here. And so we just had a conversation, and she talked about my experience, my qualifications, what I had done, and she offered me a job there and then. So although it wasn't a formal interview, there wasn't even really a job, at that time I needed to find work. So I think that's probably one of the boldest things I've ever done. I'm not entirely sure I would necessarily do that again, but
it's what's the worst that can happen? And it's
Yeah, quite.
fantastic example.
You're getting in front of someone, aren't
Yeah.
you? And I think that, the amount of CVs that I get through you need to do something eye-catching. And if you I think I'm a massive believer in fate. So if you walked in there and it was sort of, you didn't have to gear yourself up for it thinking, oh God, I'm going to go and do this, but you just jumped off, you went in, what's the worst that can happen, as you said, Steph? And in that moment in time, she obviously spoke English or whatever, and you actually were able to communicate.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't have done that and you'd sent a note through, you might have got nowhere.
Yeah.
Natalie, thank you so much for coming along today, and also for being so honest and talking about some things that are, clearly very close to your heart. I think, certainly for our listeners, that will mean a huge amount, because people will be able to relate to what you've been through. So thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Our next guest on the podcast is Tayo Oguntanade.
And Tayo's known for BAFTA award-winning content.
Look, there was loads of sheep, right? It wasn't just one. it wasn't just one goat,
have to
right?
mention the sheep.
It wasn't just like one goat or like 3 sheep. There was like over 100 of them. So
we'll see you in a month's time.
And don't forget to subscribe to Career Catastrophes, brought to you by the Skipton Group, however you choose to listen to your podcasts.
And if you'd like to leave us a review, please do, either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.